This episode of the Profit Express is brought to you by Corbett Public Relations, promoting and protecting businesses and brands for over 30 years. Please visit them at corbettpr.com. That's CORBETTPR.com. Well, hello and welcome to the Profit Express. I am Tim Healy, and I'm inviting you to join me each and every week so together we can win the battle for business. So as always, thanks so much for sharing your time with me and being on board the Profit Express. And as I often like to do, I like to start off with a question. So my question for you today is, are you at the point in your life, personally or professionally, where you might be giving up on those lifelong dreams? Perhaps you're thinking, it's passed me by. I'm too old. I didn't get the education. I didn't get the degree. I don't know if I had the confidence or the courage to do it. Well, I can say one thing. Age, education, self-esteem, those are excuses that you've allowed to get in the way of pursuing that lifelong passion that you've had, that lifelong dream that you had. And that's why today's guest is a very special guest. Because as somebody who grew up as an orphan, one of 68 in an orphanage in Mexico, with 8 of her own biological brothers and sisters, she grew up so poor that she had to, along with her brothers and sisters, hunt for their own food at night. And it wasn't until a scholarship for basketball led her to the United States of America, where she ended up at the University of Charleston in West Virginia. And while there, her friends encouraged her to enter in her famous salsa into a local salsa contest. Well, she actually won the contest. And as fate would have it, there was an angel, if you will, who was at that contest and went up to her and said, hey, you know what? Here's $800. I want you to get this business of yours started. When she asked the person's name, the person didn't give her their name. When she asked, hey, how do I pay it back to you? The person says, don't worry, just make sure one day you pay it forward. Well, she turned that gift of $800 into what would one day be a sale to Campbell Soup for $231. And her company, Maggie's All Natural Salsas and Dips. So if you're thinking that perhaps your dream has passed you by, you didn't get the degree you needed, or you're just afraid to take that plunge, know that today's guest has been up against what many would say is insurmountable odds of poverty and being in an orphanage and then coming to a new country and grinding it out until one day she created what is monumental success. So it's a pleasure to welcome aboard the Profit Express, Magie Cook. How are you today, Magie?
Good. How are you?
I am very good. And when I get to share a story like yours, it's special. And, you've lived your story. I'm sure you understand and appreciate how special it is. But there are so many people, and these are even the people that you might talk to in your audiences now that you're a keynote speaker. But so many people have allowed their dreams to die on the vine. So many people have allowed excuses to get in the way. So no matter how much they hear from other people, I think hearing a story like yours, which to me was an absolutely phenomenal story, and the fact that we can share it on the Profit Express today is great. So again, thanks for sharing your time today.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yes.
Well, one thing I have to ask. So we took a gift of $800 by that angel who you met at the salsa contest. Mm-hmm. And he turned it into the inevitable sale to Campbell's for $231 million. And we'll get into some of those details later. But I want to know, as you grew that business, and as you are today now, you're a speaker, you're a trainer, you're a consultant. How does the experience of that childhood impact how you do business today?
That's a very, very good question. I had to learn. I had to have resilience. I had to have resourcefulness, relentlessness, survival, I guess, to make it. I didn't have options where I was because I was there for 18 years of my life. So, but I had my mind to focus on hope and possible prosperity in the future instead of being boggled by fear of many, many different things. But I think that I learned how to survive and I learned how to be stronger because of my experiences. And I believe that perhaps that is some character that I built to that has helped me with business. One of the biggest things in the orphanage was a lot of the girls there were being raped or sexually abused, and there was just so many of us, right? It was impossible to have two caregivers take care of everybody. And I decided to become a tough person, like nobody messes with me, or I'll, do whatever. And I was actually grabbed by an adult when I was 6, 7 years old or something like that
Oh,
in the back of a building. And I was strong enough to punch his nose and make him bleed. But from then on, I decided to turn into this tough character that but it was of the need of survival. But then in business and in life later on, I think that perhaps my past did help me succeed because of the character that that I had to be in order to survive.
It's funny. So I hear you telling these stories, and some of the characteristics or traits. You mentioned survival, and you mentioned kind of putting. It's almost as if this is what I'm hearing, Maggie. Tell me if I'm wrong or not. It's like you didn't have the luxury of fear because survival was key, and that was a strong, strong driver for you then.
Well, I did have fear. I some days I felt like I could die because
Really?
you could be hit really hard or something.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was moments where there was so much fear. It was paralyzing. But then when it wasn't in action, then you quickly switched to where can I go? What can I occupy my mind? And I love, I don't know if you've seen my story video. It's at gomaggie.com, gomaggie.com. But I have a photo of the cave that I built in the side of the mountain. And it was my secret hiding place. And it was a place where I would go to get away from everything. And it was my safe place. And that helped me tremendously because then I would dream in this cage of what could I become,
Right.
just for the sheer hope of being somebody someday and be able to tell that story if that opportunity came, because I had so much hope, even though I didn't see anything outside of that barbed wire fence, because we were in the mountains of Michoacan, like where nobody else lives other than that orphanage.
So it was a very remote, desolate location,
Yes.
and but you had this cave that you went to. This kind of your place to get away. You're almost like a safe place, if you will, that you were able
Yes.
to kind of come to your own thoughts, and it sounds like there was a lot of dreaming and a lot of vision there.
Yes.
Wow.
I want to show you something. See this right here? This is the knife that I used to dig that cave, and it was about, I don't know, a meter into foot. I think 2.5 feet per meter. It was about 6 feet meters in the side of the mountain, and it was so hard to get to. It was practically like a canyon that was as long as like a football field in length,
Right.
and you had to crawl or like grab onto roots to get to it. So it was impossible for anybody to find me, and I loved it. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption, when he
Oh
takes
yeah.
little by little, so my goal was not to dig the whole cave and let people know that somebody's digging there. So I would like go and spread the dirt so that nobody
Like
knew.
yeah, yeah. He dropped the pebbles in the prison yard through his pant
Yes.
leg. I remember that.
Yes.
Wow. So now when you're digging this cave, you're how old roughly?
Oh, I was like 7, 8 years old. And I built it right on top of a tree because my idea was if I have roots around me, it's less likely that it'll collapse. But I always had a rope tied to another tree outside in case it would ever collapse. I could find my way out.
Now, if you think about this, so you're 6 or 7 years old, and what you're doing, you had somebody who approached you and tried to attack or abuse you. Thankfully, you're able to, defend yourself, get away. I'm just hearing this, and in America, fortunately, a lot of kids don't have to go through this, and it's almost hard to understand. It's, even for me as an adult, it's hard to understand what you had to go through at that very young age, and I'm not making light of it. Or, well, let me ask you, how much of an advantage was that childhood experience in creating the success that you enjoy today?
I think that it's made me the person that I am today, and I'm so thankful for all my mess in the past.
Right,
Because it's become my message and my, I've had people ask me, like my coach at the University of Charleston, basketball coach, she pulled me aside one day and she said, I just wanted to talk to you because I just learned about your story and how come you're not in prison? How come you're not doing drugs? How come you're not, lost and you're able to be this successful? And I said, we all have choices. We all have choices, and it's the choices that really define our destiny. Every single day we have choices, starting with our minds, the moment that you wake up. So I had choices, and I always looked at other people's mistakes, and I tried not to make them. And I think that's probably one of the things that's truly helped me in business because I'm able to discern. Like, honestly, I made a lot of mistakes in business, and everybody does, especially starting out.
Oh yeah.
And not being able to get help, especially, had to do it on your own. You make mistakes, but you still learn from them and you grow from them. And I think that my experiences in the past, I wouldn't change them for anything. I would not. If somebody to ask me if you would go back, what would you change? Absolutely nothing.
Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, it's powerful, and you can't get that experience. You can't get those life lessons in a school. Obviously, education's super valuable. We all know that and understand that. But those kinds of lessons you only get one way, and that's through living them. Now you talk about choices, so let's fast forward a bit. And again, thanks for sharing that story of your childhood. To me, it's fascinating. There was a big break for you that almost didn't happen. So you won the contest, the $800. You're in business, okay, and you were making cold calls to get your product on retail shelves. You're kind of selling it locally. Obviously you wanted the exposure that big retail outlets could offer, and you were getting slammed on the phones. You got tons of rejection, and as you told this story to me, in a after so much rejection, you get frustrated, you throw down the list, but you come back the next day and you made a phone call and you didn't quit. And this goes back to what you just said, Maggie, of choices. You made the choice not to quit. Why was making that one more call so critical to your success?
So critical. Even if that wouldn't have worked, I would have still tried something else.
Right.
That's the thing. Because I wanted success so badly, I was willing to do whatever it took. So if it meant changing the way that I was approaching something as many times as I could, then I was willing to do that. But, I got rejected by 90 stores, and it was so hard because I've never done cold calling ever in my life. And here I was, this little Mexican girl, picking up the phone, and it was so nerve-wracking and frightening. And it was worse when I got all those rejections and all those slams.
Right.
And what I decided was I was going to put that list down because I had made the list from the smallest to the largest supermarkets. And the next day I decided to turn it around. Given that the day that all this happened, one of my best friends walks into the room and he says, "What are you doing? You should get a job. Quit what you're doing. Like, it's not taking you anywhere." And so I didn't even contemplate, maybe she's right. I was like, I know I have something that people just need to taste and try because fresh salsa wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
And so I called the Whole Foods Market, and I'm so glad they didn't answer because I was so afraid. I just left a voice message and I said, hey, my name is Magdalena de la Cruz Garcia. I have an awesome pico de gallo de salsa that I think you guys would love. And that was it. And the next day they called me. It was
Oh,
6
but
p.m.
by the way, just the way that you say that makes it sound delicious. By the way, I just have to say.
Thank you. It was a very delicious product. So this guy calls me, and I'm parked on the side of the street in the center of Charleston, and he says, "Is this Maggie?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "This is Eric from Whole Foods," and I'm like, "What?" He says, "We heard about you. We want to know more. When can you come?" And I was like, "When do you guys meet?" And he says, "Tomorrow at 9 a.m." And I'm in West Virginia. This is in Maryland. And I was like, "I'll be there." I don't know how I didn't say
Right.
this to him, but I will
Yeah.
figure it out. So I went back to my little kitchen, made some salsa, and drove all night to the main distribution center of the whole Mid-Atlantic for all the Whole Food stores. And I walked into this building, and I walked in with my heels, my little dress, and my boxes of salsa with chips on top. And I was so nervous because I've never done anything like this. And I go into this room, it's all guys, and this big table that was like a U-shaped table.
Right.
And I'm like this, and I'm like putting the product down. What's gonna happen? I have no idea what's gonna
So
happen.
your heart must have been pounding out of your chest.
Oh my gosh. Talk about adrenaline.
Wow.
If I could run, I could have run easily with those heels out of there.
So I love this story because listen, anybody in business, if you're in sales, chances are you've had to do some level of cold calling, and nobody likes it. That's the rejection. You have to embrace it. It could really just crush your soul sometimes. So you in desperation, you throw it down, you quit for the day, and then you just reverse the list and you call on Whole Foods. And as you say this, as you share this story, as somebody who works with sales professionals myself, the fact that you were relieved to get their voicemail and not an actual human being is everybody, Maggie, who's listening, who's been in sales can relate to what you just said. It's like, yes, that's me. I can feel that. So then the next day you get a call. You're still in West Virginia. They say, we need you in Maryland tomorrow, 9 a.m.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, I wanna take this back a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that I changed my mentality on with sales, because it was so frightening to me. See, I want to do everything out of joy and out of success and out of prosperity. So I tricked my mind into thinking that future sales would be treasure hunts instead of, oh my God, what if I could treasure? What if I'm on the journey to treasure hunt?
So changing your perception of what a sale was in your mind, instead of
Right.
something that was some arduous task that, was negative, flipping it in your mind. Wow.
Yes. Yes. And that's very powerful, I think, for teams to consider because it can be a very daunting process if you don't have the right mentality to do that.
Well, no, absolutely. And it goes back to one of the first things that you said that caught my attention. Again, it's choices. We've all got those choices. And,
Yes.
Given your background, a lot of people could have said, well, you could have ended up, in a life of crime. You could have ended up in prison. But again, you chose decisions. You made choices, rather. You made your own decisions. And again, today's guest is Magie Cook. As I like to describe her, the quintessential American success story, coming from an orphanage in Mexico, winning a scholarship for basketball to the University of Charleston in West Virginia, to entering in a local salsa contest and turning an $800 gift into a $231 million sale to Campbell's. It doesn't get any better than that. I mean, that's a script that you just can't write. Now, so let's go back to that meeting with Whole Foods. So not only, you got a meeting, which is great, but one of the big players, one of the big players. You're sitting down, you do your presentation. What happens there? Take us from that point forward.
Yes. Eric gets up and I don't think he consulted with everybody because he was the main top guy of the entire region.
Okay.
And he says, "We love your products. When can we have them?" And
So he said it like without consulting anybody else.
he just got up.
Wow.
And he said, "We love it. When can we have it?" And I said, "Well, how much do you need? And at that time, I was making about 250 pounds of salsa a week for friends and selling it to little
Locally,
places.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yep.
And he says, well, your first order would be 10,000 pounds of salsa. That's 60,000 tomatoes. First order, weekly orders from then on.
So
And
you were making 250 pounds a week, selling at family, friends, local shops in your community, and they say, okay, we need 10,000 a week, and that's 60,000 pounds of tomatoes.
that's 60,000 tomatoes,
Oh,
right?
oh,
The Roma tomatoes,
okay, individual
roughly.
tomatoes. Okay, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah, right. So okay, so how do you go from 250 to 10,000 a week?
I had to reinvent my life. I
Okay, so
did. I had to, ask them. I said, I need to go back and rethink everything and see how I can get everything in line to provide, for you. And
sure.
the one thing I didn't know was that, by the way, this sell was the difference between making 12,000 a year to $1.9 million in just 1 year with this only supermarket. And what happened was, now because I was in Whole Foods, other supermarkets started calling me because now I had the status, right?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So everything went up from there. So one of the biggest challenges that I had was banks wouldn't loan me money, and I was so mad at them. But I totally understand why now, because I had nothing to show for.
Right, right.
And I'm thankful for that experience. And so I said, well, how am I going to come up with this money? I realized I needed $20,000 for cost of goods. How am I going to come up with $20,000? I don't even have like 1,000, right?
Right.
And so I had an idea. I went to Whole Foods and I said, listen, would you be able to like give me a paper or something that says that you'll pay me every week in order for me to see if I can get the funds from friends? And they said, yeah, of course, it's called a contract. I said, oh, okay. So, they gave me a contract. I went to friends and I said, look, Whole Foods pays me every week. Can I borrow 20 grand and I'll pay you within a week? And it was signed and everything. Every week from then on, Whole Foods paid me $40,000 every week from every delivery. But I had to supercharge everything from hiring people. I knew nothing about hiring people, like 20 people the first time. I had to supercharge my production. Instead of cutting the tomatoes, what can I get to make like at least 5-gallon batches in
Yeah.
one, with all how to do everything, how to get a truck. I got my truck driver's license and to drive the products because I didn't know, how to get a truck driver or anything. I had to improvise, and truly everything happened within that week that I had to supercharge. But first we had to go through the process of actually signing the contract and making sure everything was
Yeah,
in
yeah.
place. And I have so many stories. It was such an awesome experience with hiring people, which I couldn't figure out how to. And I went to the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and said, oh, go to the state. They have plenty of people. I said, okay, good, cool. Gave me a number. I called and I said, I need 20 people by tomorrow. And they said, sure, we'll have them there for you by tomorrow. I was like, oh, cool. Okay. So I got 20 people and I got them in this room. And I got them all fired up. And I said, hey, guys, my name is Magie. I have this awesome pico de gallo salsa. And look, Whole Foods wants it. And I believe with all my heart that it can become the largest salsa company in the U.S. and probably in the world. And you guys are going to help me take it there. And they were like, yeah, and they were so excited. And we went back to work. So we started production and everything. And every day during lunch, we would take a break and I would buy them food, because I wanted to discuss how we could improve daily, because we were so growing so quickly. And in one of
Wow.
those times, when everybody went back in, we were sitting on the rocks outside, and this African-American guy stays behind. And I said, what's up? He says, thank you so much for hiring me. Nobody else would hire me. And he said, I just got out of prison and I did all these things. And I'm like, la, la, la. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I said, listen, you're so awesome. Let's just go back to work. And so I went.
You gave him a second chance. You gave him a second
Yeah,
chance.
yeah. Well, I went outside and I called the state and I said, I got someone from prison. They're like, they're all from prison. I'm like, what? but they were the best working people I've ever had because I married them to my purpose.
Right,
And they were so
right.
excited to be in that journey with me.
So,
They were the
so
best people.
so this is like a whirlwind. You basically got an MBA in business administration inside of like a week. So it's the contract, it's getting the inventory, machinery, etc., and then people. You go to the state. We got 20 people for you. Then you find out they're all from prison. They end up being great people. Um, I mean, and then another thing that you did that I loved is you took the time, because I could just imagine how quickly your world must have been moving at that point. I couldn't even
Yes.
imagine. I couldn't imagine.
Yes.
But you took the time at lunch break to sit down with these folks and get them charged up and excited and share your vision and share your passion. I mean, you're sharing this passion how many years ago, on my show today, and you're making them a part of it. And that's something that I think more businesses should really embrace. And I don't think enough of them take the time. Maybe they don't see there's value in it, but you're bringing them on board with you. That's phenomenal. That's such a key thing to do. So in that time, you get anything off the ground? Was there a story or a moment where something blew up and you're thinking to yourself, like, what did I get myself into here?
Yes.
I thought that would be maybe.
So this is probably the best one because I love that we're just flowing organically. As soon as I got done the first order for Whole Foods, I had to get a truck and I couldn't find one, and I finally found one the last day, and I was from this junkyard place, and it was the oldest, worse than a Mexican truck looking truck that I've ever seen. That was rusty. It had the wire sticking out of the
Oh man.
dashboard,
Oh wow.
and the seat wouldn't adjust, and it was a standard, so and you didn't have numbers, so I had to like play with it. And
Figure it out.
I rented it for $350, which I thought it was awesome. So I figured it out, and I drove it to the kitchen. We loaded it up front to back all the way to the top, 26-footer, big truck. And I get on the road, and I'm so excited, and my seat is squeaky, and I'm like, "Yeah, I made it! I made it!" And I had a problem. I don't know if you know about this, but West Virginia has a lot of mountains and hills.
Okay.
The first light that I hit was like this,
Oh boy.
and a steep hill, and I was the first truck in the light, and I'm 5'2", and now my butt was to the back of the seat, and I couldn't reach the pedals, and I was like, oh my God, I was sweating so quickly, in agony, so quickly, and I thought I'm gonna hit the car behind me. I'm not.
Wait, were you rolling back? You were
I
rolling
was
back?
rolling back. I
Oh
was rolling
God.
back.
Oh wow.
So it seemed like an eternity. I jerked that truck out of that hill, like it was jerking,
Yeah.
and finally pulled it over, and because I needed a breather, I needed
Yeah.
I need to breathe, and I pulled it over, and I remember I was smiling and thinking, I've come this far, like I can't give up, like
No.
I'm not gonna let this issue, I have $40,000 worth of product in the back of this truck. I'm gonna make it. I don't know how.
Right.
And I was walking around, and I noticed there was a piece of woodblock on the road ahead of me. And I remember that I had duct taped the right mirror that was falling off. So I ran to the truck, I grabbed the duct tape and duct taped it to a piece of woodblock to my foot.
Right.
And that's how I rode to Maryland so that I could reach the pedal.
So you
But
tied a hunk of wood, taped a hunk of wood to your foot to reach like the
yes,
clutch and the pedal.
well, the accelerator, because that was further down.
Okay.
See, I couldn't
Yeah.
reach that. That's why I was jerking the truck.
Right.
And the funny thing is that truck was so bad that it had a gas leak, so I had to stop for gas a lot. And you had to park where the big truckers are, the diesel.
Yeah.
And every time I got out to get gas, these truckers were looking at me so funny because I had this piece of wood block and I was walking inside to pay, and it looked like I had a horse with one hoof. Hoof, that's how you say it.
Hoof. Yeah.
Hoof.
Yeah.
And but after a while, I just owned it. Like I didn't care. I was going to Whole Foods, right? And I remember finally arriving there at like 1 in the morning or something, and backed up the truck. And I remember they were unloading the product, and the truck was bouncing because they go in with their machines and bring out the product. And I was just so happy, and I was just screaming, "Victory, victory! I made it! I made it!" And that was the situation where it could have easily blown up and
Oh,
not able to
wow.
deliver. And
Oh, wow.
that's where my major resilience and resourcefulness kicked in, even if I had to do that piece of woodblock. Um, I don't know if maybe if I didn't have the Mexico experience, I don't know if I would have seen that, you know?
Well, think about it. Like you said, physically you're 5'2", and you couldn't adjust the seat. I mean, something as basic as that. Obviously it's a clunker of a truck. You're crossing your fingers that it actually makes it to Maryland. Um, if you didn't have, and listen, we never know in life, but I feel comfortable saying if you didn't have that experience in Mexico, could you have quit at one point? Could you have pulled over and ended up in tears and say, "Oh, forget it, I did my best, that was it"? Some people might have, and I think there's another interesting thing. You start off the interview earlier with you still have that knife. You still have the knife that you used to
Yes.
hunt and to carve out that cave.
This is my
Wow.
hunting knife, by the way, also.
Wow. That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Today's episode of the Profit Express is brought to you by Corbett Public Relations, promoting and protecting businesses and brands for over 30 years. Please check them out at corbettpr.com. That's CORBETTPR.com. As I often start with my shows, I do like to ask questions, like to get you thinking and reflecting. And my question for today was, are you at a point in your career, your life, where you might be giving up on that lifelong dream, desire, or passion? Maybe you're thinking you're too old. Maybe you think, well, hey, I didn't get that degree. Maybe you lack the confidence. Well, I'm here to tell you that those are just excuses that you've allowed to get in the way. And we all suffer from, myself as well. And that's why today's guest and her story is so spot on, perfect for you and everybody else to hear if you are one of those people who's delayed the pursuit of a goal. She is Magie Cook, and she grew up in an orphanage in Mexico, and it was a scholarship for basketball that brought her here to the United States and the University of Charleston in West Virginia. And it was winning a local salsa contest. And when she was at that contest, an angel came up to her, literally and figuratively, and gave her a gift of $800 to start her business. When she asked that angel, "What was your name?" Angel didn't give her the name, and says, "Don't worry about paying it back, just pay it forward." So not that long ago, you started the company in 2004, Maggie?
Yes.
So here we are, it's 2021. You sold it in 2015. It's just a story like yours that I'm honored to share with the listeners. I'm honored to hear it myself. I as a business owner have allowed excuses to get in the way. And I love it when you hear a story like yours, because I think I'll just speak for myself. It makes you get real with yourself. And it makes you say, really, I'm quitting, or I'm stopping, or I'm calling it quits, or I'm not working hard enough. And this is what you've done. I mean, that's just absolutely phenomenal. So let's get back into it. You just shared the story with Whole Foods, which was it's a great story. You also ended up you got the salsa into Walmart, Sam's Clubs, to name a few. Again, everything that you learned, you were learning a lot of it, on the job training. What were some of the big lessons, or like the biggest takeaway in dealing? Because you were dealing with industry giants, and here you were,
Yes.
a tiny little startup in the beginning, going from 250 pounds to 10,000 pounds. What was your biggest lesson that you learned dealing with the big players?
The biggest lesson that not necessarily that I learned, but it got reinforced is that I'm going to just give you a quick example, quick story. When I was
Yeah.
in junior high in Mexico, and I was going into the next grade, the next class with the next teacher, and some kids came out, young adults came out of that class saying, he's going to fail you. He's the worst teacher. He's hard to deal with. He's all these things. And I said to myself, I didn't say this to them. I said to myself, I'm just going to open myself for the experience of experiencing it for myself rather than taking anybody else's context about what their experience, their personal experience was. And so I did. And I had the greatest relationship with this teacher and the greatest nurturing and fulfilling gift with just learning that from that experience. That, by the way, when I went into Walmart's, I didn't call them, they called me. And the reason they called me is because I did this manifestation thing, which I practice every single day about how to manifest big players, but I didn't say which store. I just said the largest supermarket in the world is going to call me. I'm going to shake the buyer's hand. They're going to smell I was practicing this in my mind for almost 29 days or so, and they called me, and they said, "Hey, this is Dee. Is this Maggie?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "We were looking online at 10 different salsa companies. We think yours is the best. Do you want to sell to Walmart?" And I was like, "Oh, hold on a minute, just a minute." I put it in mute. I went to the living room to my business partner. I said, "It's Walmart. They want our product." She says, "It's a prank. Hang up." You know? But the biggest thing that I learned here with this, I guess, again, reinforcing, is that as soon as this happened, I had so many people come in and tell me, Walmart is the worst. They're going to squeeze everything out of you. They're going to not pay you enough for your products. They've done all this, to other people. And I just silently said, let me have that experience. And this moment that I walked in, the buyer, which was the top buyer for all Sam's Clubs and all Walmarts of the entire country, I met with that guy, and I was freaking out. Silently, I was like, when I met him, and the first thing he asked is, how much can you make right now to make sure that we don't spread you too thin,
Right.
that you're not able to supply? And what's the most that you can get out of this? In their markups, the margins were the lowest of any other supermarket,
Right.
which means that meant I made more money. And so I realized, by allowing myself that experience, I didn't go in it with that energy of fear, which could have probably happened. I didn't go with any other expectations other than expecting the best and experiencing that experience for myself. And that is probably the biggest thing that really made me realize it's people's perceptions that can change energy and the way that you're perceived in sales and the
Right.
way that people read you and the way that deals end up being. And so by allowing myself to have my own experience, I had the best experience ever with this company.
Wow. There's so much in that one answer, Maggie, that I want to explore with you. So, a lot of people in business have, like, if you're the little guy, the little player, we have these perceptions as to, the big corporation, they want to squeeze you, as you just said. We've all heard that. But what you did, it goes back to choices, which is what you said in the beginning of our talk today.
Mm-hmm.
You chose, like with that teacher in school, you chose to create your own perception based on your experience with that teacher, not
Correct.
listening to the negativity. Because one thing, I'm sure you'll agree with this. You probably heard of the saying, thoughts are things.
Yes.
Everything in this universe, everything, this started with a thought. A product, a service, a poem, a book, a painting started with a thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you also, with the power of visualization, you're visualizing shaking the hand of the executive at, the biggest player.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's so funny? That exercise is an easy exercise to do. Nothing complicated about it. Everybody on the planet could do that regarding their goals, right? Their dreams, right? It's nothing special that you have or I have or anybody else has. But so many people might do it for a day or 2 days or 3 days, and then they, who am I kidding? Right? Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so you did it for 29 days and then you get a phone call.
Research says, scientific research says now that it takes about 21 days to really begin manifesting, because whether you believe or not that you can accomplish something, if you tell your mind enough that it becomes believable, it's almost like it's already happened.
Right.
And so I had this experience where I wanted a nice car. I've never had a nice car. And I manifested it. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, yeah, I already had it, because it was so real in my mind that the manifestation process was a done deal. That when it came, I was like, yeah, like it didn't feel like, oh my gosh, I manifested this car. It felt more like I already had it because
Like
of that
it was
experience.
natural. Yeah. It was
Right.
natural. It was meant to be.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's about reprogramming the subconscious to, because it doesn't know between real or not. The more you put something
Mm-hmm.
there that has
Mm-hmm.
so much power with emotions and all kinds of things that you can practice, that truly can change your destiny,
Right.
the way that you
Right.
apply that.
And it's funny. So for everybody out there listening, I know you do lots of presentations and talks and seminars and such. I know there's somebody listening to the show today who's hearing your message, and I know they're going to have that your message, that our conversation is going to have a profound impact. I mean, that's why I love doing the show, and it puts me in touch with people like you, which is a great benefit, of course. And I think it's especially important because there's just a lot of negativity today in the world. Whether it's politics or business or whatever, or social media or this or that, people just like to just just mire in the negativity. And again, I'm going to say it again at the risk of repeating myself. We all have the choice. Are you going to bask in it? Or are you going to allow yourself to have those thoughts or not? Wow.
Mhm.
Do you currently, or did you have a mentor in life and business?
I've never had a mentor, and I
Okay.
don't have one now.
Okay.
I've always wanted to have one, but I didn't know how to approach someone to mentor me. I've been a mentor to many because of my experiences, but I do understand the value of masterminding
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and associating yourself with like-minded people or higher-minded people, which I
Right.
do. Uh, but it's not like on a mentorship level. It's more on a like help each other level,
Right.
which I'm still yet to experience that, and I would be so happy if that would happen, because it would be an experience that I would like to have.
Okay, so all right, so let's have some fun for a second. So you are a mentor to people, which is great. I thought you would be, if I had to guess. Obviously, based on what you do and giving back, and paying it forward. Okay,
Mhm.
which I know you're great at. So if you could have a mentor,
Uh-huh.
who would it be?
Ooh, nobody's ever asked me that. If I could have a mentor, it would probably have to be Oprah.
Really?
Yes,
You're aiming big. I like that.
absolutely. She is one of the most connected spiritual people in the planet. And I can only feel that if I was around her, that I would feel
Hmm.
that enhanced energy of goodness, of who she's become, because of coming across many people's lives that are inspiring, and just the knowledge that she has, the experience, her own story.
Hmm.
um, I think, and I don't look at super successful people or stars or important people as, oh my gosh, you're up there and I'm down here. I've never looked at it that way.
Hmm.
They're like regular people, just like me,
Right.
just like my team members. Like I remember going into production and start working with my team, and they would freak out. What's wrong? Well, I've never had a boss working with me. I was like, well, now you do, and this is how you do it quicker. And they're like, and I believe that we're all equal in the spiritual sense,
Hmm.
and there's
Yeah.
no surprises. And it's as little you think or as big you think, that's equals the amount of the result of your success.
Well, that's a great point because if you put people on such a high pedestal, it makes it untouchable. It makes
Hmm.
that then you probably wouldn't approach or you wouldn't reach out, et cetera.
Hmm.
All right, so now I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you going to reach out to Oprah?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
not?
actually, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right,
Or
now,
maybe
but
she's listening, or maybe somebody that knows is, we can connect.
hopefully she's a fan of the show. I don't know. Keep me posted, by the way.
Yes.
So now let's talk about obviously a big part of your story, of course, was your childhood growing up in Mexico, the starting of Maggie Salsas, all natural salsas, the sale to Campbell's. Take us to where you are today. I know you're doing a lot of exciting things.
Hmm. Yes. So I've been speaking in stages, uh, and when the pandemic hit, I
Mm,
everything got postponed, and I got certified to speak virtually, and
sure.
I pivoted, and I saw an opportunity that I wasn't doing before, which
Hmm.
is I opened my availability for platinum coaching for people who want to become more successful,
Hmm.
and also started online programs. And I've been able to just in the speaking part of it be more successful. And by success, I mean not only financially, but reaching more people. The success of reaching more people and being able to make a difference has been the best this year. It's been greater than any other year in my speaking career,
So specifically from the coaching perspective,
from both the coaching and the consulting, and also the online programs and the
really.
virtual speaking. The virtual speaking, I've spoken more virtually and made financially more money virtually than ever. And I'm in my home. You see me very nicely, but I'm wearing these camo tights with big socks. I love it. I don't have to get on the plane. I don't have to go anywhere.
Well, it's
And but I still get to connect with people in an even better way. And I realize that when I'm on stage, people are afraid to come up to me. I'm a minister also for Unity.
right.
And I spoke at Unity of Texas last weekend. And the minister, which is a pretty big church, he
Hmm.
said, I was so afraid to come up to you and shake your hand after and I'm like, why didn't you? And so virtually people are not afraid to ask questions because I love doing Q&A after.
Yeah.
And I find that I connect even more. So
Hmm.
if you see a problem, it's always going to be a problem. But if you see the opportunity, you shift that mindset into saying, what's the opportunity and the new things that are happening? It no longer is a problem because you've changed the way that you're looking at it. Therefore, you open the opportunity in the gifts of receiving and being able to experience more and get better. And that's exactly what's happened with my business since the pandemic hit.
So is there and listen, obviously your message is applicable to a whole host of audiences, associations on the corporate side, businesses,
Yes.
even schools. But is there an audience, and I don't know if your message would change, that you might enjoy delivering or communicating with perhaps just a bit more than others?
I will say no because I know who my ideal client avatar is. Okay.
Okay,
I'm very specific, but I've only spoken to my ideal client avatar once, and that was for the Tortilla International Association convention in Vegas. That's
really?
it. People in the food business. But I
Okay,
get approached by so many different industries because of
right.
my experiences, and they see how I can relate to either growing a culture or uh, insurance. Like I just spoke for SHRM, big conference that they had, the
Oh, for
human
human
resources.
resource. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
Has nothing to do with salsa. But right, but the biggest thing that I've learned is that in order to really make an impact, because SHRM told me, oh, we don't think we can afford you, but 20 minutes for this much. I was like, sure, we can, you know,
Right.
and so, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. Where were we at?
Just as far as your message with the different audiences,
Uh-huh.
Sherm has nothing to do with salsa.
Yeah, and so It was such a great experience because I get to ask. They said, "Oh, just come in and share your story. It's going to be good enough." I said, "No, listen. What is the biggest challenge you're facing?"
Right, right, right.
And the audience, and what do you think they need to hear? By knowing those two things and reading more about the company, I'm able to connect in a way that perhaps other speakers don't, because and then I can pull from my experiences. And sometimes it's very sad and I make people cry, and sometimes it's very funny that I make people come out of their chairs laughing,
Right, right.
right? Because of what I've experienced. And it makes a really great inspirational asset to me, because people
Hmm.
will always remember how you made them feel.
Hmm.
And that to me is so, and vulnerability too. You have to be super vulnerable,
Yes.
mindfully,
Yeah.
mindfully,
Hmm.
so that it fits, so that it's not too much, but mindfully be vulnerable. Because when you have that vulnerability, then you can connect with the people's experiences that have been there, done that, and haven't been able to speak or hear anybody else share those experiences.
Well, you bring up, listen, obviously you're a professional speaker and you take the time to learn who the audience is, what matters to them, what are they dealing with. Because you have your story, okay? That doesn't change, but how you're going to deliver it, various stories, how you deliver those stories based on the
Hmm.
audience can make all the difference,
Yes.
which can be powerful. I mean, like you said, you can make them laugh, you can make them cry. And I mean, look at how many stories have you shared already on the show today, Maggie? And it's, when we talk about business, talking about the numbers can be fun. From $800 to 231, that's part of the fun, but it's part of the story. But
Hmm.
people are going to remember, I'm going to remember the aspects of your story. People learn, and you know this, they learn through stories.
Hmm.
They remember through stories.
Yes.
Nobody's going to remember the facts. Nobody's going to
Yes.
remember data, but
Hmm.
stories. I remember when Maggie showed me the knife, and look all the visuals. Now I'm thinking back. In
Yes.
the cave, the roots. As 6 feet deep, and the story about the truck. I mean, I'm never going to forget that. And duct taping wood to your foot so you could drive it. Absolutely amazing. So, and again, it's different. I understand that, but there might not be, I don't know. But do you have a particular part of your message that you really want to make sure, regardless of the group, okay,
Hmm.
that you deliver? Is there an element? Is there a lesson that no matter who you talk to, you want to make sure you
Hmm.
connect this element with?
Hmm. The greatest thing as human beings having a spiritual experience, spiritual beings having a human experience, the biggest thing that you could do for yourself is to ask yourself this question: why am I here?
Mm.
What is, why was I born? Mark Twain said the two best days of your life is the day that you were born and the day that you find out why.
Yeah.
When we are aligned with our destiny, with what we're supposed to be doing, we're going to be happy. When you're not, you're going to be miserable. And I really truly believe that the meaning of life is fulfillment. It doesn't matter how you define success as, if it's money, if it's relationships, whatever it is. Why? Why were you there's a reason why you were born. And if you're in the wrong industry, get out, stop suffering. That's one of the things that I ask myself every morning is, how are people going to remember me? That's huge. What am I
Yeah.
doing today to stay focused in my intention for my life, and be mindful about that and practice that every single day. That's the most powerful thing that any human person should be focusing on every single day of their lives. That's the best thing that I can tell you, because your life is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an accident. And you're making a disservice to yourself and the world if you're not walking in your purpose, walking in your bliss.
Are you there now? Is Maggie Cook walking in her purpose today?
Absolutely. And I will tell you that the reason why I had the fire to start the salsa company is because one of my caregiver, my father told me that I would never amount to anything, that I would die in prison and with AIDS because I came
Oh,
out to him as gay a while back.
right,
And salsa came as an opportunity and I took it. I mean, who thought that I'd be making salsa? But I said, I'm going to prove him wrong. And that was
right,
my why.
right.
But I realized that that why was based on fear and it had a lot of setbacks for my
Mm,
success.
okay.
The moment that he transitioned, that he passed, I was like, who am I going to prove wrong? So I redefined my purpose, my why. Why am I really existing? And that's really when I knew that my company was just a stepping stone for something bigger.
Right.
And it's exactly what I'm doing today. Because I realized that I can give people 5, 10 minutes of joy of putting awesome salsa into their tummies,
Right. Right.
but I can make a lifetime impact by working with people, helping people with their minds and their hearts. And then the ripple effect just goes on from there. And I'll never know how many people I truly help change,
Hmm.
create a change in their life. They have to ultimately want to do it.
Of course. Of
But
course.
sometimes I do have the occasional person that comes back and says, "Oh my gosh, um, what you said changed my life, and now I'm becoming this, 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 and that." And
Right. Right.
that's the greatest joy that I can give, of serving, and also that's my success is receiving back, the seeing the people's success because of my journey and what I was able to bring into their journey to help them manifest something better.
Wow. I mean, I'd love to continue asking you questions, but I think on an answer that powerful, I mean that's how you end it. That was amazing. Yeah, if you're not happy, don't keep yourself. It's like a self-imposed prison,
Yes.
and we all have one chance at this thing called life. We have one ticket on the ride. That's one thing I tell
Yes.
myself.
Mhm.
For people to kind of follow you, learn more about you, is there a
Mhm.
site you'd like to share?
Yes, they can go to maggiecook.com. That's Maggie with one G.
Yeah.
Cook, Cook. And you can also find me on Instagram, Maggie Cook, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and call with Maggie. If anybody wants to give me a call and chat, um, we'll make some time.
Well, listen, please stay in touch. Let me know once you and Oprah connect. Okay.
Yes,
I
I
would
will.
love to get the update on that because I'm not kidding. I feel if anybody can do it, you can do it. You absolutely, I know you can do it. I want to thank you. Your story is an incredible one. It inspires me personally. Thank you for sharing it with the listeners. It's just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on board today, Maggie.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.